My name is Mark Brown and this is my journey deeper into God's Word. And today I want to talk about a pretty controversial topic, one that I've been wrestling with and thinking with. In fact, I've been holding off doing this video. I've been really doing my research and talking to people and coming before God, wanting to make sure I have just the right angle. And I'm talking about Halloween. Now, the reason it's controversial is because there are literally thousands, large numbers of Christians who see no issue with Halloween at all. And then there are large numbers who see significant issues with Halloween. Well, let me get some of the history out of the way just very quickly. Let me set the context to Halloween. First up, it started about the time Christ was on earth, but in England and Ireland, by a group of people called the Celts. And they wanted to recognize the end of the season. And they had a name for this festival to recognize the end of the season called Samhain. Now they believed with all their hearts and were very convinced that on that day that the spirits of the dead would emerge without bodies and they would be seeking bodies. And they believed that the Celts of that day believed that the bodies would rove around the villages looking for people. And then they would possess them. And obviously for the hapless villager, that was not a good thing. So the tradition started that they would dress up as ghouls and ghosts and as scary as they possibly could, just to scare off those evil spirits that were roving, so they believed, the villagers. Then what happened is, in the history of Halloween, it was called Samhain. How did it become Halloween? Well, what happened is when the Christian church started to share the gospel amongst the Celts, it faced stiff resistance against some of their festivals and traditions, the things they wanted to hold on to that they'd done for years. And one of them was Samhain. They wanted to embrace the gospel and come to Christ, but equally they wanted their old ways. So the Catholic Church came up, the Church of the Day, which was the Catholic Church, came up with an innovative and creative idea. They would take that pagan festival and they would give it a Christian flavour, a Christian twist. And that was called All Hallows, which is where we get the word Halloween, the day before the Hallows, the day of Hallows. Now, Hallows, for the church, the way they grabbed that pagan festival of Samhain was they said, let's remember those great Christian saints, those wonderful Christian people who have passed before, who have died. It was quite clever, because they could see that this was a kind of a warding off the dead, the Samhain. So they said, the church folk of the day said, well, we know that's wrong, so let's give it a bit of a Christian spin and say, you know what? This guy, when he was alive 50 years ago, was a wonderful Christian. Why don't we remember his life and learn from his example? And All Hallows was born, or Halloween. And what we have today is a mixture. There are some aspects where we dress up. Some people should say that Halloween is about dressing up as a ghoul, as a witch, scary costumes. And that goes right back to those roots 2,000 years ago of trying to ward off the evil spirits from entering your body. But it's also got aspects where we talk about the importance of remembering those people who are dead. Not necessarily something that you've done, but in parts of the world, that's how Halloween is remembered, very minor. In America, I read a statistic in my research that $6 billion will be spent on candy this year alone. It has become a monstrous commercial activity. Wherever you go in America, you will be faced with opportunities to get Halloween products. When you turn on TV, it's all about Halloween. It's this constant commercialism, an opportunity to make a dollar. In fact, interestingly, Halloween didn't come to the US till 1900. And it was only then, it was brought by the Irish who were escaping the potato famine, and they brought with them their traditions. And as they grew, it became more and more popular till today. October 31st is a major day for people, not just in America, but around the world. The question then is, what do you do? Because here's the challenge. When you were growing up, chances are this was a normal activity. And for your own kids, you find their classmates, their friends, your friends are organising parties, trick or treat, there's pumpkins, there's a pressure and expectation to participate in the culture. So in fact, what we face today as Christians is exactly the same pressure the church Christians and leaders faced way back when they first started evangelizing the Ireland and England and Scotland. Same challenge. They came to a group of people and said, we want you to come to Christ. And these people said, we will, but we really like our traditions. We like the things that we did when we were children. So we have a choice. Really, there's three choices. One is we reject it outright, and some people use the word boycott. We boycott Halloween completely. We don't answer the door when people trick or treat. We certainly don't allow our kids to get dressed up. We do nothing at all. We pretend, if you want, it doesn't exist, or we actively teach against it. The second choice is we fully embrace it. We say, you know what? It's nothing to worry about. It's just a fun day. We eat a lot of candy, we get dressed up and look silly, we just participate and have fun. The third option is a mixture where we allow our children to dress up, but they don't take on the pagan rites. They don't take on, if you want, the evil. Now, there's no escaping it. The imagery of Halloween is evil. The Bible is very clear about witches, the occult. There is passage after passage. That is non-debatable. That is very simple. So to allow our children to dress up as that, what it actually does is it normalizes. It makes them feel like a witch is actually not that scary. There's something, an evil symbol or a vampire. We get to a place where suddenly we don't see those characters as bad. We desensitize. And that opens the door. That opens the door to Satan to come into our lives and start to convince us that if that's not bad, then is Satan really that bad? It's a slippery slope towards a position where you say, you know what? As long as I live a good life, as long as I don't harm anyone, then I'm okay. But in fact, the Bible is completely the opposite. Christianity has got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do. That is called humanism. That is a philosophy that says, as long as I live a good life and I do the best I can in my life, then I'm doing as I should. That is not Christian. Christianity says follow Christ. Be like Christ. Sacrifice and follow Christ. The passage that's been leaping out for me, let me read this to you, is from Luke 14, and it begins, this is very, very confronting. Begins at verse 25. A large crowd was following Jesus. He turned around and said to them, listen to this. If you want to be my disciple, you must hate everyone else by comparison. Your father, your mother, wife, children, brothers and sisters. Yes, even your own life. Otherwise you cannot be my disciple. And you do not carry your own cross. And if you do not carry your own cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. This is hard stuff. This is not saying, you know what, do a bit of that, do a bit of this. This is really straight down the line, saying the priority is God. Saying if you have to make a choice between what your family has done, or what the culture around you, because that's what the Bible talks about. When it talks about father and mother, wife, children, brothers and sisters, it's talking about the family culture, the culture beyond the village, the society that you live in. The passage is clear. If you have a choice between what the culture is saying you should do and what God is convicting you to do through His Word, and you want to be a disciple, then you've got to take the tough choice and follow God. The take up my cross, of course, is a reference to when Jesus was being led to the cross and the pain and burden of that, of having this rough-hewn, heavy beams on his shoulder and slaving through the streets. And then, of course, eventually he was slaughtered. When it says to take up your cross, it's not talking about a little fluffy thing or a cross that sits around your neck. It's talking about something that is painful and heavy and difficult. It is clear that this decision we face in Halloween is not easy for this one simple reason. Everyone around you just about does not see an issue with it, and maybe you're part of that. But there is an issue. There is an issue. If the decision is made to participate, to fully participate, to involve yourself in this activity and to have no critical voice or no critical thinking, but to just allow you and your family to fully participate, then you are taking what the culture around you is saying and you are placing that above the clear challenge that God is putting to us, to not participate in evil, in the occult. For me, as I've read this, as I've thought about my own children, as I've thought about my own, what am I going to do with Halloween, I've come to this decision. I am going to take a step and not participate. And I know that is unpopular, and I know that people will look at me like I'm strange. But when they ask why, then I will be able to say it's because I don't feel comfortable with it. I believe it is contrary to my Christian faith. Its roots and heritage are clearly not Christian. The symbolism used is clearly not Christian. And I don't want me or my children or my family to get to a place where they see evil elements, images, as common day to day. I want them to understand what is wrong and what is right. And I want me to understand what is wrong and what is right. This has come after a lot of prayer, a lot of talking, a lot of reading of the Word. You need to make your own call. And I would invite you to leave your comments below, whether on Facebook, on my blog, or on YouTube. I invite you, but when you comment, let me point this out. Be respectful. Because for some, this message is utterly earth-shaking and challenging because their whole life, they've never seen it as anything more than an interesting activity. Leave your comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. God bless.